Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alison, the online piano and online violin tutor. So why does everybody hate the fourth finger? Okay, very quickly then. Everybody hates using the fourth finger on the violin because it's painful to do. It's physically painful in some cases. You've got to stretch. A lot of people don't like stretching as well. And also you get a poor sound. So all of those three reasons, and there's a few more as well, that really contribute to the reason why people don't like using the fourth finger on the violin. The fourth finger on the violin is very useful to do, but it shouldn't be painful. It shouldn't ever be painful. I mean, for me, I've been playing for what, 36 years. I don't enjoy using the fourth finger. Of course, nobody does, because it is just a very awkward sort of part of the hand. But there is ways that you can learn to get better at that. So when I use the fourth finger, I wouldn't ever say that it's painful or anything like that. I'm not having to overstretch or overcompensate. You know, I don't enjoy using it because it is a very weak part of the hand. But it isn't any of those things. And yes, I mean, you still get a slightly weaker sound with it. But again, once your hand gets stronger and you learn how to use that and how to move your hand to help that out, you can get a much nicer sound with the fourth finger. Admittedly, as violinists, the fourth finger isn't a finger we like to use often. It's kind of last resort sort of thing, or, you know, if we've got no other choice, we will use it. But we wouldn't sort of think, oh, you know, we can use our second finger there. No, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll use our fourth. We're never going to be doing that, obviously, because it's too much of a weak sound. In the 36 years I have been playing, I've never once thought to myself, oh yes, the fourth finger, it sounds amazing that. You know, because you don't. So I'm going to try and give you some hints and tips as to how you can help that. So painful and stretching, those two kind of are probably in the same category. So the thing that you're going to have to do is adjust your hand movement. Now, depending on who has taught you the violin or what videos you've looked at or whatever may kind of influence this. But when I teach the violin, I always have my thumb on the side like this, and then you'll have your index finger kind of opposite that. And that's how I teach my students, and in my videos, how to hold the violin, or how to hold the neck of the violin. I hope you can see this. Now, some people have the neck of the violin sort of a little bit more further down, so their thumb is sticking up a little bit higher. Now, that's absolutely fine. There is no right, there is no wrong. Nobody's, you know, doing anything out of the ordinary. There are just two ways of doing it. I do it that way with the pad of my thumb holding the side of the violin like this, and then, you know, I just hold everything down like that, and that's been working just fine for me for 36 years along with everybody else. Or some people will hold it that way, and again, it doesn't really matter because the basic principles are still applying as long as the palm of your hand is not up against the violin like this. That's very, very bad practice. So if you are holding with your thumb a little bit higher up, that's absolutely fine. Do not change that unless you absolutely want to, or you're not finding it comfortable. Don't change anything. This isn't a video to tell you what to do and what not to do. If you're happy doing it like that and holding it that way, keep with that. If you're happy doing it the way I'm doing, stick with that, okay? So as long as your hand and your wrist isn't up against the violin. So if you're holding it like I am with your thumb there, you want to be nice and down. Can you see my wrist is not up, my wrist is down. It's a perfect straight line going down here. If you're holding with your thumb higher up, you are going to be holding more with the actual kind of palm of your hand. But again, I mean, it doesn't really matter. It feels somewhat alien to me because I've not played, I don't play like that. But either which way, as long as you are, you know, holding that way. So I'm going to continue carrying on the way I do it because that's going to be the best way for me to explain it. I don't really want to explain how to hold something best way to hold the violin for the fourth finger when I don't hold the violin that way. It may be a bit hypocritical. So I hold the violin like this with my thumb there. Now what you want to do is try and move your hand round more that way. So a lot of people will have their hand more this way. So when they're holding, their hand is more, you know, the fingers are more propensity to be back a little bit more, whereas you'll need that hand to be twisted round. So when I'm holding the violin, I mean, you know, it's second nature to me now. Perhaps if I go this way, my hand is going to be bent round this way. So it seems very unnatural for me to kind of pull it round this way. That's just what my hand does. It's almost like my hand twists back on itself like that. Do you see what I mean? So your hand is normally this way, but I twist my hand all the way around the other way. Now that seems like that's going to be massively uncomfortable, but it obviously isn't, because I've got a violin there. And my fingers don't have to be all the way round this way. They just have to be round enough. So for those of you that are holding the violin and you're more this way, so that's how you would normally naturally hold your hand. If you've got a violin in your hand and the palm of your hand is more spread out horizontally, if you want to call it like that, then trying to get to the fourth finger is going to be very difficult, because your fourth finger, look how far away from the violin your fourth finger is. So what you want to do is try and get the habit of stretching your finger, or having your hand, round, so that your finger can nicely reach the fingerboard, so your finger is just sitting over the fingerboard. So that's the wrist position. The second thing is the stretch as well. So again, if your wrist position is right, everything is going to be coming from the wrist. So if your wrist is right, then a bit of a mouthful. If your wrist is right, you're not really going to have a problem stretching. Now, the third thing I mentioned was poor sound. Now, again, it is all cumulative. So if your wrist isn't there and your stretch isn't there, you're going to get a poor sound. But once you've got your wrist in the right place and you're kind of fairly comfortable that you're doing that, and the pain's gone away and your fingers are just there, and that's fine. So with the sound, you're going to have to do a little bit of work, physical work, to get the good sound on it. Now, what you want to try and do is have that wrist round, like we said, so that we can get a good quality sound on the string with enough finger or enough skin of the finger, like we do with our index finger. That's an easy one to do. So when we put that down, the pad of the finger just underneath the fingernail engulfs the string perfectly. It's nice and flat, sound is on, fabulous. Now when we do the fourth finger, we want to do the same thing. So we want to have it twisted round enough so that we've got enough of the pad of that finger sitting on that string, and it's not kind of half kind of hanging off the ledge, and we're wobbling against another string. So with the same thing that we do with the fingers down on the fingerboard like this, we want to make sure we do that with a fourth finger. So now you're going to have to make sure you press a little harder. So this is where it can get, I don't want to say painful. Painful isn't the word, just maybe a little bit uncomfortable. So you're going to have to physically press a bit harder, which can cause a little bit of, stretch and tension, but it's completely normal. Obviously, I should caveat this by saying, if you're experiencing extreme pain with this, might be worth getting your hand checked out if you've got something wrong, but you shouldn't be experiencing any kind of extreme pain, guys, with any of this. I'm talking extreme pain where you feel like you've got a nerve trapped all the way up your arm or something like that. Something's not quite right. Stop what you're doing, go see a doctor, that kind of thing. So there shouldn't be any extreme pain. It just feels a bit sort of, annoying kind of thing. So make sure you're putting enough pressure on the string to start with so that it's there and the finger's not wobbling around, because it's a very unbalanced part of the hand. And then make sure that your finger is sitting right over that string. So if you don't have enough skin on the string, you're going to start getting more of a harmonic-y type sound, and we don't want that. We want a nice, thick, full sound. So would be the kind of sound that we'd get if we're not doing it properly. If my little finger is fully on and fully depressed, then we get a proper sound. Or as much of a nice proper sound as we're going to get. But if I'm kind of half on that string and not quite doing it, we're going to get a bit of a wobble in the sound, and it's going to start sounding like a harmonic. So to recap then, wrist all the way round will help you with the kind of the pain or a little bit of the uncomfortability, and it will also help you with the stretch, or you won't have to stretch as much because your wrist has turned and is doing all the work. And then making sure that you've got enough pressure on that string with your finger. Don't be light. You need to sort of make sure you've got a good bit of pressure on there. Don't over push it. Obviously, we're not pushing the finger into the string. You just want to, just a common sense, just a good amount of pressure so that it's on there. If you put too much, you'll just, your finger will just start fatiguing a little bit. So make sure you've got good pressure on there, and also make sure that you've got a good amount of skin, a good amount of flesh sitting over the string. If you haven't, If you haven't got good pressure and you haven't got a good amount of flesh on there like you do with the other fingers, which are very easy to do, you're going to start getting that kind of whispery, kind of harmonic-y type sound. So if you want to know more about the fourth finger, I've got more in my tutorial book too, which is lesson 15 on page 24. There's a lot more information in there about the fourth finger and how to help, and it's got some exercises and pieces of music as well. So I'll put links, if you want to know more, I'll put links to this book directly underneath this video. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.